What's up guys, my name is Jack, you're watching JBTCG, and today we've got a little lighthearted video, no analyzing anything, no crunching the numbers, no looking at investing in sealed products. I just want to show off some goofy tactics that people are using to sell cards on eBay that I think is a little bit goofy, a little bit scummy, and I want to show you guys some of the worst examples that I found, or some of the funniest examples. And the original thing that made me make this video was this Giratina card. So what I'm talking about is people saying PSA 10 contender on cards that are either raw, near mint, or they're like PSA 9, PSA 8. And usually the reason they're doing this is to justify a price that is higher than the regular raw cost. So take this Giratina card, raw cost, I think this was sold, I don't know, yeah, September 17th. I think the cost was around $190. They had it listed at $235. Their justification for selling it higher was because it was a PSA 10 contender. So they place it somewhere in between the near mint cost or the PSA 9 cost and the PSA 10 cost. Basically, it's just a way to squeeze out a little bit more money from the end consumer, but usually when someone says PSA 10 contender, it isn't actually true. They're just saying that to say it, essentially. And I could say that for any card. I could say any card is a PSA 10 contender because for the most part, it's based off of the opinion of the grader. So if the grader messes up, it could be a PSA 10. But in reality, this Giratina is not a PSA 10. And if we look at the centering here, it comes blatantly obvious. Look at the top. The top, it's also crooked. The card is like crookedly centered. The top is also very thin on that top left edge and quite fat on that bottom left edge. That is not going to be a 10 pretty much any time. You can regrade that 100 times, maybe once it gets a 10 if somebody messes up. But centering is like the easiest way to determine that a card has a 0% chance of getting a 10 because it's like one of the only things that is actually strictly monitored. With whitening on the corners and stuff like that, or the edges, it becomes a little bit more fuzzy because sometimes you can get away with a little whitening on one corner. Sometimes it's too much and they give you a 9. Stuff like that is a little bit more subjective. Centering is pretty objective. So I thought it was funny that this person put PSA 10 contender on a card that is not a PSA 10 contender. Next up, an even crazier card. This is the Gengar Mimikyu, and this one is in a PSA 8. So PSA 8 for a modern card is generally pretty bad. It's going to be usually priced below the near mint or like raw cost of the card because generally a raw card out of a pack will get you a 9. If it's a PSA 8, that means something is wrong with it or it's like really off-centered, which in this case is actually what's happened. If you look at the centering, the bottom is so thin and the top is extremely fat. This is never getting a 10. This is not a PSA 10 contender card, but they put in potential 9 to 10. Maybe it could be a 9. I don't even think it could get a 9. That centering is pretty atrocious. Now the back looks clean on the card, like there's no real whitening that I can see, but that centering, you're probably gonna get an 8 with centering like that every single time. And that's just not worth it to regrade. So I do feel bad for whoever bought this and if they fell for the marketing here because this is a sold listing. Pretty atrocious stuff there. Next we have a raw card. So the other two were graded. This is a Shaymin EX. This one only sold for like 16 bucks, so it's not that bad, not that egregious. But they said rare potential PSA 10. Let's see, let's actually look at the card. Is this a potential PSA 10? All right, we got a little whitening in the top left. We got like a little white speck on the surface in the middle here. The card looks pretty clean overall. And then if we look at the surface of the card, oh, those look like there's 2 dents, almost like vampire marks on the back of the card. That is gonna get you down to like a 6, just because of that surface damage, because it's an indent. Any damage like that, like a real like dent in the card or something, is gonna immediately take it down from like a PSA 10 potential to something like a 7 or a 6. So I hope whoever got this didn't send it to grading thinking they were gonna get a 10, because they most likely are gonna get like a 6, maybe a 7 if they're lucky. Next card we got here is another raw card. It's the birthday Pikachu. This is the reprint from Celebrations, and they said it's PSA 10 potential. So let's evaluate that. Is this PSA 10 potential? Let's look at the back. The back looks pretty clean. It's a fuzzy picture, so you can't actually really tell. That's also to the seller's advantage. The less clear the picture is, the less defects you can see. But let's look at the front. Let's take a quick look at the centering. The top, sides look decently even. They're a little off center. But that bottom is huge. It's incredibly bottom heavy. The top is so much smaller than the bottom. That's not going to be a 10. Like immediately you can tell that this card does not have the potential to be a 10 if you know what you're looking at. And I think that's the problem. They're not looking at selling this card to me. They're not looking to sell this card to somebody who's been in the hobby and knows the tricks and trades of the hobby. They're looking to sell this to somebody who's new and is like, ooh, I'm gonna send a grading submission through GameStop. I wanna get some cool cards and get some 10s. That's who these people are largely taking advantage of, which kind of sucks. Now, I did want to bring up one card that I think actually did have the potential that they advertised. This is an Entei Black Star promo. This is one of the oldest promos, might be the oldest promo we've gotten. Don't quote me on that. I could be very, very wrong. But it's a Wizards of the Coast promo card. This one, honestly, it's one of my favorite promo cards. It's also super cheap if you guys are looking to add something to your binder. It's a great card. It really stands out, and it's like, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks in near mint condition. This one is $10, and they said PSA 1 potential, and has a gigantic crease going right across the center, a bunch of whitening on the sides, a little bit of a chip there. And I think he's right. I think it does have PSA 1 potential. This is the only one so far that I think is accurate. And honestly, if people want to advertise something as PSA 1 potential, I think that's completely fair. Sell your damaged cards as PSA 1 potential. That's a great way to advertise them, because if a card has a crease going straight across the center and a bunch of scratching like this one does, it probably will be a PSA 1. But either way, moving on to the last card. This isn't a long video or anything. I'm not going to rant after this. But this is a Pikachu. This is the Surging Sparks Pikachu. The title reads, Pikachu number 238, Pokemon card, PSA 10 potential, read description, rare investment. Rare investment. Now that's gonna get my head turning. Let's see, let's take a look at this. Card is in excellent condition and highly eligible for a PSA 10 based on scans done. Well, at least they did some scans, that's nice. I haven't sent it out myself because I don't feel like waiting, so I'm giving someone else the chance to grade it and make a profit. Wow, he's for the community. That's so kind of him. I can't believe he'd do that. PSA 10 copies of this card sell for around $800 plus. So what he's doing, he's selling it for $400, taking all the risk out on himself and putting it on to whoever the buyer is. Now let's see, what date did this sell on? It was August 24th. So August 24th, let's check what market was at. It was right around $250. So he sold this card for $400 while market was $250. Since then, market has actually gone up, so hopefully the person who bought this, they actually didn't get hosed too bad just because market has come up on it. But he sold this card for $150 over market because it was a rare investment. Now the condition of this card is actually pretty good. Like, I will grant him that. It does have a decent chance, a decent potential at a PSA 10, as he would say. But even then, I wouldn't say it's guaranteed. Like, if we look at this bottom left corner, there is some whitening there. And when we know that, like, if there's some whitening, it's okay. Like, one little bit of whitening on one corner can pass as a PSA 10. But if there is any other imperfection on this card that I can't see in these low resolution pictures, it's gonna be a PSA 9. But after seeing this stuff, maybe I gotta start advertising better on eBay. I just inform exactly what the thing is. Like, Prismatic Evolutions Pokemon Center ETB, that is my title. Maybe I need to put ultra rare, Pokemon Center exclusive, Prismatic Evolutions, Pokemon Center ETB, gotta add in Pokemon Center twice, make sure they know it's super exclusive, ultra rare. Maybe I throw in like special illustration rare in the title. I don't know. Any tips you've got would be helpful down below. But yeah, this stuff is goofy. I honestly didn't know that people did this until I ran across this card because I was looking for a Giratina VSTAR and a PSA 9. Because also, if you're looking for cards that are near mint, just buy them in a PSA 9. You can get them for like the exact same price. The condition is guaranteed. You know it's also a legit card. So I always just buy PSA 9 cards of like chase cards that I want raw. It's like the exact same price. So I'm buying a PSA 9 all day. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. I can't believe people do this. But that's all I got for today. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe out there.